Good to see you guys all this morning. Really great to have the kids in here as well. If you're new around here, we usually have the kids and communion, the elementary kids, up with us on the first Sunday of the month, but you will notice it is not the first Sunday of the month. It's the last Sunday of the month. We moved it, especially because we really, partly because it worked out this way, and it was just we really wanted the kids to be with us on this morning. It's going to be a little different. It's going to be kind of special, I think. And so the way it's going to go this morning is in a second, I'm going to pray for our offering and our time. And then, we've been in this Letters of John series. I'm going to just give like a 5-minute, and you can hold me to it, okay? A 5-minute little devotional, little kind of setup out of 3rd John, okay? And then I'm going to turn it over to Erinn and David and Chris, and Erinn is going to kind of host a discussion for the book of our time here about the Rongai Church in Kenya that David and Chris just got back from visiting, Monday, was it, something? Yeah. So this is their first Sunday back here. So it's going to be really fun. And then afterwards, I'm going to come back up. We'll go through our time of communion and continue with worship and prayer ministry as normal. So that's the plan. Does that work? Can we do that? Okay, cool. By the way, I'm curious, I'm looking at you guys. How many of you guys who are in some way tied to the school calendar, how many of you started that this week? Yeah? A lot of hands, a little bit of enthusiasm. I think that was from one mother, not coincidental. So, and unfortunately, my own daughter. Is that what you wanted to say? You're going to start on Monday. Yeah, we didn't get to start, unfortunately, but we'll get there. Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad that everyone's off and running, and hopefully that continues to be well. So we're in Letters to John. I'm just going to go and focus on one word here in verse 8. Okay, that's where we're headed. I'm going to read the other verses to kind of get us there, and then we will go from there. Okay, so this is not 1 John 3. That's totally wrong. It's 3 John, okay? And there are no chapters in 3 John because 3 John is the shortest book. Okay, but it says, the elder, to my dear friend Gaius, whom I love in the truth, dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. It gave me great joy when some believers came and testified about your faithfulness to the truth, telling how you continue to walk in it. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. Dear friend, you are faithful in what you are doing for the brothers and sisters, even though they are strangers to you. They have told the church about your love. Please send them on their way in a manner that honors God. It was for the sake of the name that they went out, receiving no help from the pagans. We ought, therefore, to show hospitality to such people so that we may work together for the truth. Okay? So we don't know a lot about this context on this passage necessarily. There's not a lot of background history necessarily, but just from looking at the passage and the little bit that we know about it, I think we can kind of deduce that what's happening is that we've got one group of Christians who it may have been part of John's church or maybe was sent out from John's church, but they're going out here in this first century environment, and they're going out and they're taking the message of the gospel. They're trying to bring God's kingdom to people who haven't heard it yet. They're trying to go out amongst, the Gentiles or the pagans. They're trying to bring the kingdom to people who haven't known it yet, okay? And along the way, they run into this guy named Gaius, okay? And so this letter is written to this individual, but it's pretty reasonable to assume that it's not actually just this individual that's named Gaius. This is like a public letter, and usually, at least for Gaius, it probably would have been his family, and maybe even his community. Maybe he had a community of believers as well, okay? And so what we've got is one group of Christians, one group of brothers and sisters, coming into contact kind of by means that we don't have a lot of detail on exactly how that happened, but clearly something that God orchestrated to where they came into contact with another group of Christians, and that there was this hospitality, there was this receiving, there was this help. And then at the end here, John uses this word, the phrase here in the NIV is that we may work together for the truth, okay? And so John is like overjoyed that this happened, right? You can just hear it in his voice. He's so happy. He's encouraging it. He's like, this is so good. And keep going with this. Keep going with this. And the word that he uses here is what we'll just focus on for a second, this work together. In the NIV, he makes it sound like it's something that they're just doing, but really in other translations, it'd be better to think of it as something that they've become, right? And so this word, synergos in the Greek, it means to be fellow workers with God, okay? So the idea being that we've joined together, another way to put it out is that we're companions in the work, companions in the labor. That's something that God's doing that we're getting to come together with this other group of people to do, okay? And so I just want to point out really quick, right? So it's synergos, but you'll see kind of the English translation or the Latin transliteration is what do you see there in the parentheses? Synergos, I guess, right? What word does that remind you of? Synergy, right? And that's because that's where that comes from, right? The word synergy comes from this idea of synergos, of being fellow workers, that there's something in this coming together of two distinct groups or people, right? That there's a fit. There's something that they can do together that's something that they are together that they're not apart. Okay? So that was 5 minutes, and I'm going to stop right there. I'm just going to stop right there. And I'm going to bring up Erinn. So Erinn's going to come up. I'm just going to leave you with that thought as we go forward. It may be related. It may not be. We'll see. I think, yeah. Erinn, and you guys too. I didn't think I needed to say that, but just, okay, I'm going to move this. Okay. And then we're going to get it set up. You guys got stools. I'm going to give you the clicker, but you can hand it off if they want it as well. So.
You can.
And this has got a switch on it. Okay? Okay. Seamless transition. Here we go.
He stopped mid-thought. That caught me off guard. And I almost started in on my announcements spiel because that's the only reason I'm ever up here. But, all right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Well, we are going to share, actually, they're going to share about I'm going to talk. They're just doing a thing. They're going to share about their trip to Kenya. And just to start it off, I somehow had the privilege of being a part of this conversation this week about how this teaching, or actually how they would share with Caleb and these two, and I became a part of it. So we've been talking about it all week, and through our conversations, what became really apparent, and what I want to just kind of start off with, is that this is not the they cannot share the totality of what happened while they were there and everything that they experienced and everything they want to communicate to us in a 20-minute little snippet on a Sunday morning. So this is just the beginning of them passing along what they experienced and sharing that with us. I have daydreams of a dinner where they just talk the whole day. We've got hours. We're just sitting around and eating, and they're just talking and sharing stories. So other things will come. I have no details on that, so don't hold me to it. But it's just what I want to do. Anyway, this is just the beginning. So this is only a tiny portion of what they have to share with us. And the other thing that became really apparent to me and just kept standing out is that this is actually just one stepping stone in a long relationship that has already been formed by God outside of our ability and will between us and this church. God has created a connection between two bodies of believers on opposite sides of the globe, and this was just one of the steps in a natural progression in that relationship. So this is really them just sharing more with us about a relationship we're already in, whether we knew it or not. We walked in here and we're actually already in this thing. So I thought it would be helpful to start out with kind of some informational kind of stuff of like how this progressed, just the highlights of like the ways that God steered this thing and the people that he put in each other's path and how we got here, both for informational, but also because I think it will lead to a deeper faith in all of us of the God that we serve that is able to orchestrate this thing on other sides of the globe. So we're going to start with that. David's just going to give us kind of a history of this relationship between us and them. You've heard some of it, but don't check out because I think actually there's more that we're going to share today and going to go through it a little bit slower. And then after that, what we landed on was them just sharing stories with us about ways that they saw the kingdom lived out in a beautiful, rich way, like little moments where they saw this community of believers living out the kingdom to its fullness that they are treasuring, that they brought back to share with us about, because it will challenge and edify us as a body of believers. So that's what we're going to do. So he's going to give us a little history, and then we're just going to talk about this beautiful expression of the kingdom.
First off, they wanted to make sure that we thanked you. Many times they told us, tell them we love you. Tell them thank you for the Bibles, thank you for the T-shirts and all that. So they sent that to me recently, yesterday, and so I wanted to make sure to pass that along, so thank you. I wanted to give you a little history of how this took place, and what Erinn said is so true. This is something that just has happened to us, God has orchestrated. It's a pretty long history. I want to try to condense it, but still make it understandable. That section that you see there in red is what we're going to be talking about. And it all started when I received a phone call in my office from a person who was from Rwanda, who was a pastor, who had gone through genocide, and wanted to meet with me. And I have no idea how he got my number. And I normally just think, well, I don't think I know you. But on this particular case, I felt a real strong impression. I need to meet with this person. So I went and picked him up in South County. And he was with a group of Banyamulenge. Can you say that? Banyamulenge. I mean, that's as good as I can get. Probably better. You probably say it better than I am. But this group of people and at the time, he was staying with this person here. His name is Justin. And so I didn't know a lot about Justin at all, but I knew that they lived way up. I think they may have been on the 3rd floor, and they had 4 young singles there with no family, and they carried Jackson up and down the wheelchair every time. And I thought, this is a unique group of people. They were so kind and so loving. And I knew they were solid and connected to Jesus as Christians in a way. So that started our relationship. And so as you know, most of you know, genocide that took place in Rwanda. And then in 1994, which over 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed. And in that spot, the person I had met who called me was a leader of a church going through that. So that allowed me to start moving into another world. And then Justin began explaining his story as we got to know him, even after the other person left. We got to know them, and our people in the church began getting to know Justin. And he talked about, Justin was in the village, and the rebels who left Rwanda moved into DC Congo, and they began having genocide because Banyamulenge are Tutsis. And so because of that, this village, this is actually a picture Emmanuel just gave me. Emmanuel's part of our church. We'll talk about him later. This is a village they were a part of. And because of that, the village was raided, and they all had to flee. And Justin was just small. He was probably a teenager. We're not sure exactly on the age. And this is back in 1996. They had to flee. And so they ended up being in DC Congo, and so Justin was separated from his family and his parents because they told him to run, and they left. I won't go into many other details, but over time they just found their way by walking into Rwanda and spent time in Rwanda for quite a while, and then because it was a safe place, and then Kenya became somewhat safe, and so they moved into Kenya. And so as I got to know Justin, he talked to me about this whole thing, and that took us into a good relationship with him. Lindsay Matouche in our church began getting involved with him, and we had a number of people connecting as well. And they began telling us that we realized that Justin didn't know if his family was alive or not. And so for a number of years, we had a relationship, and he would always be asking everybody he called back in Africa, do you know my brother, my sister, my mother, my father? And never had anything. And so he'd been a refugee in Rwanda for over 11 to 12 years, and now he's over in the United States by a miraculous thing without his family and never knowing if his family's alive. And so I'm like just in this other world going through this, and our church is going through this, and I remember getting a call from Justin and says, my brother is alive, and I found out that my sister's alive too, and I found out there's a whole group of people who have now settled in Kenya. And I remember that call, and of course, Lindsay couldn't wait to go there. So, if you know Lindsay Matouche, so she was the head of this. She went to Africa and visited them in Kenya. And so, at that time, he got reconnected. He still didn't know till later. He did find out later that his parents were actually alive too. A few more years later, he found his parents were alive and still in Congo, and so they've restored relationship and all that now. But if you can imagine that, after 11 to 12 years of not knowing your family, coming to the United States all on your own in this different culture, and then we have a group of people, about over 20 people who were just surviving because they can't work when they're refugees near Nairobi. And so Lindsay went there, and right before us first, and that top picture is when she visited him. She's on the bottom right. You can see Emmanuel, who goes to our church, in the red sweatshirt, and Jolie and a few other people that you may know. And so he had never been there, but I remember showing these pictures to Justin for the first time. It was pretty emotional. And then, sorry about that. This is, you guys who don't know me, I just cry all the time. It's not like, don't take it seriously. It's just like I'm unstable. God will heal me later. But the second picture is me and Lindsay went again to Kenya, and we were brought to the house in the group, and I remember going there, and they had a meal, and this is Justin. There is second from the left, and this was the day after he first met his family, and so we were there, and they put a dinner on for us, and so it's hard to not get connected after this. You think God's up to something, and He was, and so then we started praying for them to come here. And we went through lots of twists and turns. We don't have time to go, but we stayed with them, and we began supporting them to survive over there. And there was over 20 people. This is a few of them. Some went to Australia, but we have I think it was over 13 or 14, I can't remember for sure, came here. And this is when we went and visited them after they got here. So many of these people, you'll see Emmanuel, Jolie, you'll see Noah, and I don't know if it's in there or not, but he said baby, and then Jeannie, all those people that we have in our church were all part of this, right? So that is how we got started. And so Emmanuel then, he got settled in. Hey, Emmanuel, I know you're watching in your truck somewhere going towards Pennsylvania right now. He's hauling a load to Pennsylvania. But Emmanuel got established, and about in 2019, he basically said to me, he said, I have a mentor that mentored me when I was in Rwanda as a refugee, and he was a refugee as well, and he basically trained me and helped me connect to Jesus. And he's now in Kenya, near Nairobi, in a town called Rongai, and he feels like God's calling him to start a church. And I told him he must be a vineyard. That's what he said. How do I make this happen? So luckily, Josh Downs, his mother, oversees Kenya. So that's in Vineyard, so that was positive. So we have a pretty good connection there. And I'd been there one time. I knew the national director. So we ended up working that through, and they visited and went through all the process, and they became a Vineyard church. This happened in 2019. 2020, I wasn't really paying much attention to anything good. And so the next thing I know, when we come out of COVID, I start getting WhatsApps from Imabile, who's the pastor. And Imabile sends us this picture that they have a church about our size in Rongai. And so since that time, we've been connected to them. And so through that period of time, we're now, since then, we've been sending people and connecting, but this was the first time I was able to go back over, and so that's where we're at. So that's the setup. So I want you to say in this is that this is something that I am not the mission guy. This is just God causing me to pick up the phone. And this whole thing has just been God orchestrated, and it is something that's part of our church. And it's God's hand in putting these things together. And this trip we had confirmed that in ways that I can't quite put into words. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, before you guys even left, when praying for you guys, I just kept, and like even the Sunday right before you left, I just kept getting this really strong impression that the misconception that this was some kind of mission trip where we're going and we're the people with the stuff and they're the people in the need and we're gonna go and like, that there was, like, there's unequal footing in that. And what he was making really clear is he's like, this is a body of believers that are embodying things about the kingdom in a way that you need. At the same time that you are embodying things about the kingdom that they need. And so that's what happened this trip and what you guys were explaining. So why don't you guys just start, maybe Chris, you start with one of those stories where you just felt.
Yep. So first, you'll probably notice that I'm wearing a gift that they gave to me.
I forgot mine. I'm sorry.
Keep both mics on. Keep both mics on, please.
I'm sorry. I forgot to wear my shirt this morning.
I was going to make a joke that they didn't give you a gift.
Oh, yeah, all right.
But they did give. So I thought, there are kids in here, right? Clyde, come here, buddy. Come here. Come here. Let's just pass this around. Over here. Over here. Go over here.
Now he'll leap off.
This is a gift from our friends in Kenya. Can you just kind of play around with that? Just look at it and then pass it to the next kid. Okay. And we'll make it go all the way around. Okay? Does anybody else have more enthusiasm for this? Anybody?
Just kidding.
Let's see it. Woo!
And I just want to say, I also want to say this is something where this is for the worship team. This is their handmade shaker out of handmade. And
Let's see it.
They saw us emptying.
Can you show them how to do it, Dave?
I'll do it later. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Right. Okay. We have a video later that you'll enjoy.
Continue on.
All right. Let's just tell a few stories. This is on Friday. We did our work with the leaders Monday through Thursday. And spent the whole day with them. You'll hear a little bit more about that. And then Friday and Saturday was time to play. And so top left is David and I and a couple of leaders. That's Kevin on the left in the red up there, and also in the bottom left. He was our interpreter. He was, younger and had learned English in school, and that's Abbas in the back right of the truck. And then that's Amable, Kevin's dad, who's the pastor on the right there with the giraffe. So. I don't know if you noticed like a theme throughout all of these is that we're just having a blast. So on Friday, as a visitor, I just wanted to go and enjoy Nairobi. Like I just want to see what's there. Like I want to enjoy what is unique about it. And so, I'm like, hey, David, let's go on a safari. There's a park right there by Nairobi, and it's literally right by the city, and you can see the city. You go from the city, you're driving toward Rongai, and there's a wall on the side of the road, and that's where all the wild animals are. So that's top left, and then the bottom was on Saturday, the day that we left. In the morning, I wanted to go to the giraffe center. And so you can see they come right up and they give you the food, and you just kind of hang out with the giraffes and feed them, and as long as you want. It's just amazing. In the safari, we weren't feeding any of the lions or anything. The giraffe center, you could feed them. Anyway, the story, just a long story short, is this was just going to be fun for me. This is what you do as you go and enjoy where you are and you kind of explore. And And I thought, hey, let's just invite, you guys want to come? You want to come and we'll, go on safari? And I figured they had been before, and, they're like, okay, we'll go again. Like when people come from out of town, you go to the Arch again. It's like, okay, that's fine, we'll go again. And then also with the giraffes, and I assume, because it was literally, 10 minutes. Both of them were 10 minutes from their house and the church, like right there in that area. Turns out they'd never been to either one. And so, we get to see the first animals in the safari, and I'm like, hey, Kevin, how many times have you seen a black rhino? And he's like, never. I've never seen a black rhino. Like, you grew up here? And so that was kind of the tone of the whole time, was just this fun discovery together. And I just want to finish by saying, at the end of our time at the Giraffe Center, Kevin and I were getting a snack, and Amabile came over and sat down with us. And just had this profound moment of, he said through Kevin, he said, Chris, I just want to share with you the impact that you've made. And I thought it was going to be, we'd already been through a whole week of training with the leaders and all of that. And, he said a little bit about that and, gave me some compliments and all of that. And then he said, this coming here to this Giraffe Center was so fun and important for me. Not only have I not been here, but I haven't brought my kids here. Like, I haven't shared this with anybody. I had so much fun coming here. And he kind of tied it into, you came here to teach us, but you just invited us into your life. And just you shared what you love with us, and now we love it too. And if you know the scripture I learned in seminary a while ago, that the Apostle Paul wrote, we didn't just come and share with you teaching, we shared with you our entire lives. And it was a moment of connection where it's like, oh, now we share this experience together. So that's my first story.
Sure. What I love about that story when you said it yesterday was it just kind of made very clear that they are an established, rooted in their identity, very comfortable with, and very rooted in their relationship with Jesus. That it was just this level, like brothers sharing with one another what they have and how they understand the kingdom. And it was like, you particularly understand play in a way that is really unique to you. Like, of course, the kid, in every picture you sent, the kids just found you. They're just like sitting all over you, and you're dancing in all the videos, and like, you were able to show them that just by being you. And like, it wasn't received as like, here's some training from me because I know the things and I'm going to tell you that. It was like, I'm just being me in Jesus, and you got to see another way to do it. And David, are you going to share the watch? Are you going to do the watch story? Yep. Is that what you're going to do next?
No.
Okay, well.
I can. Here.
I hope you do.
We're just, okay, so I'll get to the watch.
Okay, all right. Well, no, you go ahead. But I think the watch was just I felt like I wanted you to share that one because it was the opposite.
Very African.
Yeah.
We are not back in America yet. Like, sure, whatever.
I guess I get to pick, don't I, since I'm hosting. I want you to share that one because I think it shows the other way. I think it shows by them just being who they are, it was exemplifying the kingdom to you in any way.
Yeah. So this is Amabile's home, and he is over after Sunday with his whole family. It was quite a packed house, and really kind. I can't describe to you what when I first knew, I knew there was poverty. I didn't understand the depth of poverty. I didn't understand until we were walking there. I thought, because the people are so connected to God and so loving and outward, I just had never thought someone who could be in that kind of poverty could have such clarity in their identity with Christ and how deep they were connected to Jesus. And so Kevin there is the one you can look, and if you look, there's a watch he has on the guy in the gray shirt. You see that big watch he has there? And so I was sitting right next to him. I'm taking the picture now, obviously. And as I was sitting there, we were just getting to know Kevin. It's very, very new. And he saw me looking at his watch. It was really a cool watch. And he took it off and tried to put it in my hand. And I said, oh, I don't really want. And so you could tell there's this awkward moment where I was like, what are you doing, you know? And And so later, we just kind of I just got to that moment saying, I didn't know what was going on. So later we got to know him, and one night we were talking to him. I said, can you explain that watch thing? Like, because we got to a point we could just start talking, and he said, we were talking about gifts and how they see generosity. He says, gifts have to be something that is connected to your heart that you love, and then you give it away. And I thought, I really love this watch. I think if I gave it away, God would use this and it would connect me to him. I thought, never thought of that as an American. And I remember just understanding that the way they saw things, the way they saw resources, the way they saw the relationships were way above everything. And so it just helped me understand lots about cultures at that one moment. And it was just a really big moment.
Yeah, that was so beautiful to hear that, like, I think in our culture, we see giving from our excess, like on the peripheral of, like, my needs have all been met, and actually many of my wants, and then whatever is left over, maybe I can give out of that. And where they understood this, and I think in such a right way, where they understood that actually giving, like, they look for the opportunity to give away what they love because they think that that's where God is. And like, if I want to access God and I want to feel God, I have to give away what I love. And that he was explaining to you that that's actually, they look for that. They look for chances to give away what they love so that they can feel God. And it was just so beautiful to hear that. I think we have time for one more short story if one of you wants to pick one.
Oh, don't go there.
Yeah, don't go there.
That's a surprise.
You're back before these.
I'm going back.
We didn't even make the PowerPoint. We sent some pictures, and so we don't know the order here.
Yeah, I think we just talk a couple. Yeah, and and let's talk about the leaders. I think the thing with Imabile is that he is very humble and high character, and his leaders are all young people. There's a lot of depth of the older people who had gone through lots more tragedy, and they have a deep relationship with God, but it's all the whole leadership team of these 20 people were all young, married, or single, or teenagers, and they run the show.
And young like 15 to 25, like young people.
Yeah, we were so impressed with, even Sunday mornings, it was the 15 to 25, the youth, they called them a youth, right? And the youth, they would just go up on stage and they just started to worship themselves, a whole pack of them dancing around, and one person kind of was the leader, and that led the church into worship, right? It was just like, we're worshiping, come join us. And sometimes, a youth would come in 5 minutes later and they would just walk up on the stage, and, someone else would come up, and it was like, oh, that's what we're doing. It was just super like we're all in this together. And I just sensed a freedom about that. And that's what I sensed in the leadership as well, is they were just free to be themselves. They weren't, and I found like, this is the one thing that I felt like God was saying to me over and over again, because I was in that moment. We're wondering, I'll speak for myself. Like, is this okay what I'm doing right now? Like, in the worship, am I dancing enough? Like, to show that I'm involved, but not dancing too much to draw to, but like, should I go over here? Constantly. And I knew that was like my flesh, and I was just dealing with my flesh. Like, you're worried about what people think of you. You're worried. You're not worshiping right now. It's like, you're all thinking. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And confession. And all they were doing, they didn't care. There was no people pleasing. There was no what's somebody else doing. There's no how do I fit in. It was just we're all just having fun worshiping together. So that was my piece of the leadership, the freedom.
Yeah, I want to do one more.
Okay.
All right, hang on. I want to do
one more. Are you okay with that?
Yeah. This gal here is one of their leaders. How old do you think she is, Charlotte?
I thought she was 17.
17. She runs their intercessory prayer. That's where they have intercessory prayer. They love this intercessory prayer. Every Wednesday, they go into this room, which is the children's room too. They take the mattresses out, and they intercede for 3 hours so they fall asleep, because they just realize they fall asleep, so they just put the mattress there, and then they wake up in the morning and go. and this is Charlotte. She just loves Jesus. And somehow this gal got me, because it's like we'd be worshiping one night on Sunday night, and we try to get them to pray for each other, but they don't really, that's a little unfamiliar to them, but they can feel the Holy Spirit. And when they feel the Holy Spirit, they just start interceding out loud. I mean, older women, and I remember looking at Charlie, and she's this 16-year-old, and she's around this woman we were praying for people who'd been through some tragedy, and I remember her putting her hand over on this woman who was interceding, and she was singing over her. This is just normal for their youth. They get up in the morning sometimes and secretly go to the river because they like to pray there together, and it's safe to get up at that time and go, and they need other people from other churches to go with. This is the kind of stuff that's just, they don't telling you these things. You find out about it and you go, wow, I think they understand intercession and connecting to God. And so we realized it was a turning point when we said, in Vineyard we might just cry and weep and chill and let God go in these deep places, which is all God. When they feel the presence of God, they dance and they intercede, and you can feel it. But you can feel it right in the room of happening. So.
And if you're not familiar, intercede is a churchy term for praying for someone else, like on behalf of someone, like praying directly to God. Like here, you see when people come up to the front, we do prayer ministry, and you are praying for that person in their presence, and you're listening to hear from God to deliver to that person. Interceding is you are talking directly to God on behalf of someone or something. So just
so we're going to finish up last couple things. 2 slides.
2 slides.
Yeah.
Okay, but that story,
go ahead.
What was so beautiful about that to me was their, and you said it yesterday, was like their deep care about their character. Like being formed into people of deep, rich, integrated character. And this is like forming their character in these moments of like, they'd get up at 5:30 in the morning and go pray in the ice cold river, because like praying, they like wanted it to be more intense and more formational, to like, they wanted to pray harder. Like that, and it was just because they wanted to. And so they were like, how can we make this even harder, because it would be so forming of them.
It's not religious. It's very much just.
It's just natural.
Yeah.
Okay, we are actually over time. So if you're going to share one more, it has to be fast.
Yeah.
Caleb, it's him.
You guys are right here anyway, right?
It's his fault.
So
It's an African Sunday, right?
they didn't even have a clock.
Go quick.
Go quick.
Respect
Just
this
keep
woman.
bantering.
I know.
Okay. So when I talked with Kevin, just really quickly, just to lead into the next slide, Kevin, we were at their home having dinner, as you saw, and it was very peaceful, very quiet, and they even talk across the table like this, and we had a great time, and it was just
Really impossible for somebody like me.
Yeah.
I talk so
And
intensely.
so I said, it's so peaceful here, because we just came from church. It's so peaceful and really loud at church. Like, talk to me about this. You are really loud at church when you worship. And he looked at me, and I was kind of joking, and he said, when we go to church and when we worship because we worship that way, freely, because God has set us free. And he said, that's just what it looks like to be free when we worship. And I was kind of making a joke, and he's like, oh, wow, that's amazing. And so now you know a little bit of what freedom means for this group, right? It's so profound. So anyway, we have a picture of David dancing freely. Just wanted you to see this. It's just a party. It's just a party.
Like, that's a level of aerobics I could never do.
It was sheer obedience.
I would be
sheer obedience.
out for the count after about 15 seconds of jumping like that.
I actually had to stop. I was like,
Yeah.
I can see the ambulance coming soon. I was starting to roll shaky. And I said, I think the Holy Spirit's having me sit down. They sense the Spirit and dial it down a little bit.
It was that for like half an hour.
Yeah.
It was that, and so that was about the 30 seconds that David could handle.
Yeah.
We have one more video that is a little bit of a surprise, saying thank you to some folks who helped.
I did
with the
not
trip.
help with this.
And so
this was a
David
surprise.
David had the church thank them. So
And I forgot to add Noah. Sorry about that. Good.
nope. Can you guys play that?
Thank you, Erinn, Lindsay, and Emmanuel, and Noah. Sorry, Noah. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
That was great. Thank you guys so much. Yeah. It's great. There's already requests flowing in for that video of David dancing, so I just saw that on my way up here. But so that's like just a tiny little snapshot. I know that was a little bit, but we kind of take that in and just see what God's doing with that, right? So it wouldn't be a Sunday morning if we didn't end with some kind of invitation. And so we were talking about, right, at the beginning, that they are fellow workers, that God has somehow orchestrated this thing where these two groups of Christians who are equals. It's not one helping the other, only single direction. There's something in them and something in us that we get to exchange as part of the kingdom of God. And so that worker part, I just wanted to remind us what we mean by the work, right? Because you could say, well, I don't really know what they're doing over there, and I don't really know how what they're doing affects what we're doing here. Like, what is the work that we're talking about when we're saying fellow workers? And so I just want to remind us, we've talked about this a lot of times, but it's very relevant in this case especially, is that the work of the kingdom is to yield to Jesus, right? When Jesus was asked in John 6, what is the work that we ought to do? He said, the work is to believe in me, basically. And so that's what we're on this journey for, and we just can see very clearly that we're helping each other with that. And as we continue to carry out our mission, one of the things they didn't talk about was that they got to talk quite extensively about how to speak with non-Christians in their lives and how to take the gospel, beyond. There's like a million things we didn't say that are all beautiful. Hopefully they will all come out in future teachings from David and Chris, and I'm sure there'll be, maybe there'll be some night where we can do more. But they're helping us, and we're helping them to yield ourselves to Jesus more. That's what's going on. So the invitation, real quick, is let's thank God together for connecting us to these wonderful fellow workers. And we'll do that in a second when we pray. And then let's just keep our hearts open, right? And maybe you came in this morning, maybe it's your first time here, and you're like, I have no idea. Hopefully we've at least explained a little bit what we're doing here. But maybe even if you've been around for a while, you're like, it's not really relevant to me. And hopefully this morning, maybe there's a little bit more of an understanding of that. And I just say, let's just keep our hearts open to what Jesus would have for us in this relationship that, as Erinn said, that we're already in. And so let's keep our hearts open for that, okay? So we're going to take communion this morning. And I am going to have Eric and Tracy, I think, right? Come up. There you guys are, yeah. And so I'll read our scripture in a little bit. The way we do communion here is that you can come in through the two middle aisles here, and they're going to stand here in the front with the basket with our little drink and wafer thing. You will peel the top, or actually you'll go back to your seats. You'll wait for us to come back together, and I'll come back up here and I'll lead us through taking communion together. So let me pray for us, and then we'll continue on, okay? So God, I just thank you so much for just your presence here with us, just in what you did and it being shared out loud in the presence of our church family here, Lord, just what that does. To just help us to know that you are at work and that you are here with us. And so we just thank you for that. And just as we come into communion this morning, we just think about that word, right? That it means we are joining together with you, and that as we do this, we remember that we join with the millions and billions of brothers and sisters that we have, and specifically with this one church of refugees out in Kenya. Lord, that we join with them in celebrating the gift that is the blood of Christ for each and every one of us.